Everyone is talking about AI-powered search. It's supposed to be this magic key that unlocks all of a company's knowledge. But what if I told you the way almost everyone is doing it is, well, fundamentally broken? Today, we're going to dig into why that AI hype might actually be leading us all down the wrong road.
Okay, so let's start with a problem that sounds simple but really isn't. Imagine you work for a huge company. How in the world do you find that one tiny critical piece of information? That one line in a config file, or that one clause in a contract when it's buried in like petabytes of data. It's a massive challenge.
And for a hot minute, it really seemed like the tech world had found the silver bullet. The promise was pretty intoxicating. These super smart AI models would just understand everything, and you could just ask a question and get the right answer. Easy, right?
Yeah, well, as a lot of people are now finding out the hard way, that promise was built on some pretty shaky ground. The solution that everybody jumped on, the one that became the industry standard, for most real-world business problems, it's just the wrong tool for the job. So, to really get why that standard approach is so flawed, we have to first wrap our heads around the unbelievable scale of the problem. Seriously, this isn't about finding a needle in a haystack. This is more like trying to find a specific piece of hay in a continent that's just covered in haystacks.
Just look at these numbers for a second. An employee might have, 100 gigs of their own stuff? But the real challenge? It's finding that one fact inside terabytes, maybe even petabytes of data spread all across the company. That is the insane landscape we're trying to navigate.
Okay, so how did the AI world decide to tackle this monster of a problem? Well, they used a technique called Retrieval Augmented Generation, or RAG, as you've probably heard. Basically, it first retrieves a bunch of documents it thinks are relevant, and then it has a large language model generate a nice, neat summary from them. It's the talk of the town for sure, but its popularity hides some really serious flaws.
This analogy from the source material is just perfect. You know how IT always tells you to restart your computer no matter what the problem is? That's RAG for AI search. It's the default, easy-sounding fix that gets thrown at every single problem, whether it fits or not, and it often just ignores what's really going on under the hood. And here's why that's such a disaster in a real company. RAG fails on 5 huge fronts. First off, it has no idea how to deal with complex permissions. Second, it's total overkill for just looking up a fact. It also completely mangles the structure of your data. It's incredibly slow and expensive when you try to scale it, and the real kicker? It usually can't tell you where it got its answers from, which is an absolute non-starter for anyone in finance, legal, or any regulated industry.
Let's just park on that first point for a second, because it's so important. If your company's data permissions are a total mess, and let's be honest, whose aren't? RAG doesn't fix that. Nope. It just becomes a super fast, incredibly efficient way to leak sensitive information to all the wrong people.
So at the end of the day, RAG is just treating a symptom, not the disease. It slaps a pretty user interface on top of a chaotic mess of data, but it does absolutely nothing to fix the real problem, which is that the information architecture was broken to begin with.
All right, so if RAG is just a band-aid, what's the actual cure? Well, this brings us to a much better way of thinking, something called reasoned retrieval. And it means we have to stop thinking about just making search a little better and start aiming for a completely different goal.
The real win here isn't just a slightly smarter search bar. No way. What we should be chasing is a system that can help us do machine-assisted discovery. Actually finding and connecting those tiny, hidden facts that unlock genuine insights. This slide just nails the shift in mindset. RAG basically asks, does this document kind of feel related to the question? And what you get is a plausible-sounding summary that might be right, might be wrong. Who knows? Reasoned retrieval, on the other hand, asks a much better question. Are these facts logically linked? And the result is a chain of evidence that you can actually verify. It's a game changer.
Okay, so what does this new model actually look like when the rubber meets the road? Let's introduce a really cool concept called progressive grep.
So here's the big idea. Instead of trying to drink from the entire corporate fire hose all at once, progressive grep just takes a small sip. It searches a very small, defined chunk of data. It thinks about what it found, and then, this is the key, it ruthlessly throws away everything that's not useful. And it uses that new, focused insight to take its next, even smarter sip.
This loop forces the system to be disciplined. It's constantly testing a theory, pulling out concrete facts, and, most importantly, aggressively discarding junk. This is what keeps the search from getting flooded with noise, which is exactly where those big, traditional AI models get overwhelmed and start making stuff up.
But hold on, there is one more absolutely critical piece to this entire puzzle. And the most powerful part of this whole system, it's not the algorithm. It's not the data. It's something else entirely.
So what's the secret ingredient here? What's the one thing that takes this whole process from being just a clever search trick to being a genuine engine for discovery?
The answer is you. It's that simple. This model doesn't see you as someone who just passively asks a question and then waits for an answer. It puts you in the driver's seat. You become an active co-navigator in the entire search process.
And here's how that would actually work. The interface would let you literally see the AI's thought process. You'd have sliders to tell it, hey, care more about recent documents, or focus more on config files. And you'd have a big red hard discard button to just kill a search path you know is wrong. You're not a passenger anymore. You are actively steering the entire investigation.
And this brings us to this final, really powerful idea. When you build a system that's interactive, where the user is engaged and thinking while the machine is working, suddenly latency isn't the enemy anymore. Waiting a few seconds isn't frustrating, it's part of a collaborative process. And that simple shift in perspective might just be the key to finally delivering on what AI discovery was always supposed to be. It really makes you wonder, what other big AI problems are we trying to solve with just more computing power when the real answer might just be better teamwork?